Pre-statistics, residual analysis, part 2, less objective. Graph the residual plot for a regression equation to help determine the best model. Less objective. A residual plot can help determine which regression model is the best choice, along with the value of R² and the scatter plot. A residual plot is a scatter plot where the original x values are plotted on the x-axis and the residuals are plotted on the y-axis. And if you recall from the last video, a residual is the actual y value minus the predicted y value. Because the residuals are automatically calculated during a regression command, graphing a residual plot can be performed using the graphing calculator. To create the residual plot for a regression model, you use the statplot command, which is second and y equals, where the x list is the values of the independent variable x, which are normally typed into list 1, and for the y list, the residuals are used, and that is found in the list labeled RESID, short for residual. Once a residual plot is created, you examine how the residuals are distributed. If the residuals are more or less evenly distributed above and below the x-axis with no particular pattern, the regression equation is likely a good model. But if there is a trend, a non-random pattern, then there could be a better function to model the data. Here we have 3 residual plots. The first one, the points are random. With the second residual plot, we see a clear pattern, and the pattern looks quadratic. And we also see a quadratic pattern in the third residual plot. The first plot, this is what we want to see. The other two, this is a systematic pattern. We don't want to see that. So this would be, out of the 3, the best choice according to the residual plot. So the idea is simple. We want to see a random pattern in the residual plots, a cloud of data. So when you have to determine the best model, you use the following tools. Number 1, the scatter plot of the data. Does the function fit the points well? Number 2, the value of R². Normally, the higher the value, the better the model. Number 3, the residual plot. The more random the pattern, the better the model may likely be. So let's do an example. Example 3. Graph the residual plot for the life expectancies at birth dataset. Is the linear model appropriate for this dataset? So I have the data inputted in list 1 and list 2. List 1 was my x values, number of years since 1980, and y2 was my y values, life expectancy. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a picture of the scatter plot. So I hit second y equals, enter. Mine is currently turned off. I'm going to hit enter to turn it on. Type is correct, first one. X list is list 1, Y list is list 2, that's correct. Next I hit zoom, and number 9 for zoom stat. This does look like a linear pattern. So according to the scatter plot, this does look like a linear pattern. Next, let's compute the linear regression model that will automatically compute the value of R². So I'll go to stat, right arrow to calculate. Number 4, list 1, list 2, hit enter for calculate, and here we see R square is 0.988, which is very high. This is very close to 1. So now let's graph this equation along with the data points. So if I go to graph, no, I'm sorry, if I go to y equals, I want to type in the equation, or I can paste it in. I'm going to paste it. To do that, I go to vars, which is short for variable. I'll go down to number 5, statistics, and scoot over to where it says EQ. That's short for equation. Number 1 is the regression equation. So I hit enter, and what this does is this pastes the regression equation. Now I'm going to hit graph, and the line appears to be doing a very good job of modeling the data. The scatter plot and the value of R square both say that this model is useful for prediction. Let's look at the residual plot. To graph the residual plot, the first thing I want to do is turn the regression graph off. To do that, I just need to put my cursor on the equal sign. Now it's blinking. I hit enter, and now that turns the regression line off. Now I want to go to stat plot, second stat plot, hit enter, and now I need to change my Y list to the residuals, and to get to the residuals I'm going to use list, which is second and stat. Number 7 is the residuals. So if I type in 7, that will paste the list of all the residuals into my Y list. Now this is a special type of scatter plot, and again with scatter plots we're going to hit zoom and number 9, zoom stat. Given these 7 points, it doesn't appear to be a pattern. To me this sort of seems random. It doesn't have a quadratic pattern. This one does dip down a little bit, but this is giving evidence that this model is doing a pretty good job of modeling the data. In the next video, I'll give an example where we do a model and we can see a clear pattern. Thanks for watching.